So did you see this? We got a new president this week, Luke.
I heard about that. Yeah,
You noticed that?
That did kind of tick across the news feed.
Yeah, I saw it here and there.
Yeah, no, but he was sworn in. He had a couple.
He was sworn in.
He had a couple new ideas, a couple things he wanted to get done, and he did not waste any time. I don't know if this was like a standard thing with the EO thing, but like the very same day, he just goes into the Oval Office and starts signing executive orders.
Really busy.
Yeah, I didn't know that was a thing. Maybe Biden did the same thing. How many did he sign? Like,
I should know that. I don't know.
There's a whole list. Like you could see threads or whatever on X.
I mean,
like 20.
Dozens.
I don't know.
Yeah, like for some reason I don't know, like 50 or 70, but I don't know, somewhere from 20 to 50-ish.
Most of them aren't relevant to this podcast, but I think there were a couple in there that we might want to talk about.
Yeah, there was one in particular that I wanted to zero in on. So just given a lot of the conversations we've had recently around trade and tariff policy and its relation to macroeconomics and global finance and all these different things. So, of course, I've had a pretty close eye to what he's been talking about. Starting at the very beginning, he gave his inaugural address Monday afternoon. Like you were saying, he said a bunch of things, but notably, trade really wasn't in it that much. Really, pretty much all he said was this bit down here at the bottom. It was all very vague, and people have been looking for details about what these tariffs are going to be because he's been tweeting about this 25% on Mexico and Canada right off the bat, 60% on China. So like everyone's been very on edge for a long time. So people have been parsing everything he was saying. But in the initial address itself, all he said was that I will immediately begin the overhaul of the trade system to protect American workers and families. Instead of taxing our citizens to enrich other countries, we will tariff and tax foreign countries to enrich our citizens. And that's really it. And then he mentions external revenue service underneath. So that aside, he didn't really.
I thought that was pretty clever.
Yeah,
the ERS
mocking it a bit, but I mean, hey, why not? Really, here this was light on detail, but I thought it was interesting just because it puts you in the headspace of where he's coming from, and that's one of the most difficult things I think with this president. Obviously, just how erratic and sometimes seemingly out of left field some comments can be. So what I try to do, or have been trying to do, is it's like, all right, we don't know what he's going to do, but if I could try to like get into the headspace, maybe that would be more helpful in understanding what's going to happen. I was going to say anticipate, but I just don't think that's possible. But here in this line, it's saying here he wants to tax other countries rather than taxing our own citizens. How reasonable that is, how fungible those two sources of revenue are is another question, but he's just really, really focused on all of these tariff items. Later in the day, he went and let me just go back here.
Gave some details.
Yeah, maybe hold on. Let me go back to like the executive order list and we can kind of answer the question, how many did he do?
It's a great picture.
Interesting. Yeah, this. Can we also take a minute to just appreciate whatever's going on here?
I like it. Serious. That's the attitude coming in here.
It's
not a whole lot different than his mugshot. In my opinion,
it seems to me it's good. Like it's obviously what he was trying to exactly emulate.
I like it. JD Vance a little less so. Looks like a pumpkin.
Yeah,
he looks more surprisingly. He looks more like a pumpkin than Trump. Maybe it's just the head shape.
Which is.
No, I'm not trying to make fun. Not poking fun. It's all in good spirits.
They're public officials.
I just want to know how many shots it was for that one.
So he's had all these announcements and executive orders over the past couple of days, starting on the first day, Jan 20th. So from page 3 to 8 here, these are all the first day executive orders. So things kind of all over the place across the board here.
You're sure these are the executive orders?
Yeah,
it's just not.
So this is
some
actually,
of these. Okay.
Like the full text of these executive orders that got signed. It's like that thing where he opens up the Padfolio and shows it to all the reporters.
Yeah, I guess I just want to make sure there's a difference between sort of an executive order and what I had saw earlier, which was just a fact sheet, which I don't know if that meant there's just more detail for the executive order or what. But I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure how, like, what that fine detail is like, but um, I'm pretty sure this is the actual text
Okay.
of the executive orders that got signed, and it's kind of facilitated through this live stream that he did later in the evening. Or so it's like he got inaugurated in the afternoon, went to this parade, went to this dinner, and then was in the Oval Office signing these things for it over like a 2-hour live stream. And so someone like comes up to him and kind of hands him each booklet and says what it's about. They really just read the top line, or basically the title, and then he signs them all. But
Yep. Yeah, I
pretty
saw that
sure
one.
this is
I
the
saw
actual.
I saw a clip of him signing the one that declassified all of the information related to like the RFK assassination, Martin Luther King. You see that? I saw
That was
that. He was
actually
like,
one, yeah,
like, oh, that's a big one.
earlier today.
After that guy read the title, oh, that's
Yeah,
a
that
big
was
one.
the
He
other
signed
thing.
it, and I think you could hear him give the pen back to the guy and said, give that to RFK Jr. Um,
Oh wow, huh?
I think that's what he said. It was very soft.
That's pretty cool. But yeah, that's definitely a big one. Not quite as related to finance and economics, but yeah, definitely pretty curious to see what
Well, yeah, definitely give
comes out of that one.
podcasters in that space a whole lot of material.
Yeah,
Um, oh man, that would be juicy to dive into, but unfortunately, I don't know if we can really tie it to our topics.
maybe it was a
Yeah,
economic hit job.
big
Who knows?
mistake. Yeah, we should have just gone conspiracy theory, full on
Not too
conspiracy
late.
theory. It's not too late. Yeah.
Definitely
Um,
not too late.
and when you talk about economics, though, you're talking about like conspiracy theories go into like lizard, and I don't know,
Well, I mean,
pedophiles
clearly, all
controlling
those
everything or
people
something.
were murdered by the lizard people cabal.
Mm-hmm.
They're the only ones that could have pulled
That's
this
what it
off.
is. Yeah.
So this is the executive order on trade that he signed. So just quickly skimming through this, it really just gives a bunch of points related to, again, like I was saying before, just kind of his general thought process, like some high level things he wants to do, but doesn't touch on anything specific to what tariff levels might be, or which countries they might be imposed on, or the way in which that might be done. That was one of the biggest things people were looking for, additional details there. He was saying he was going to impose these things on day one. There's a lot of things he did do on day one, but imposing tariffs was notably not one of them. This first one, addressing unfair and unbalanced trade. It doesn't get too much more specific than that. Establish external revenue service. That's kind of interesting, to collect tariffs. USTR, the U.S. Trade Representative, they're going to work together with the Treasury, review trade policies. This one, item D, is kind of interesting. So this, he wants to have an early renegotiation of the USMCA. That's the U.S. Mexico Canada agreement. And so this is something that was put into law in Trump's first term, and it was originally put up for, within the original law, put up to be renegotiated in July 2026. But he's saying here that he wants to do that early. So again, it's not clear exactly what's going to go into that, but it is clear that something's going to happen, specifically with regards, at least, to Mexico and Canada. Trade representative, review trade agreements, identify countries which we can negotiate bilateral agreements.
Yeah, that's kind of interesting. This is sort of one of these things where when you're on the campaign trail and you're making all these promises, it becomes very clear, or, at least one of the things to suggest is actually when they actually get in here and they put down the policy, most of these items look to be, we're going to look into this, we're going to look into that, we're going to look into this other thing, we're going to review what's going on, which sort of suggests that the promises made on the campaign trail, maybe they don't get into very many details because they just don't have them. They haven't done the research yet.
Right. And that's certainly the impression that I got from this. But at the same time, it seems to be on character for Trump. Certainly not surprising. He's very much a shoot from the hip kind of guy.
Yeah.
Maybe he doesn't know at the time, or like, what was his line during the debate? I think he said he has concepts of a plan for replacing Obamacare. So
Yeah.
this is pretty
things
much
avenues to look down. You sort of look down the path, and you can see as far as the brush, the undergrowth at the end, but you can't see much further. It's just kind of a general direction.
yeah, pretty much.
But I mean, I think all politicians probably do that. They're not going to get super specific because they're going to lose. You just make kind of vague promises.
Yeah, I mean, some do, and maybe that's kind of the point. That's not a winning political strategy. Voters don't want to hear about in extreme detail, something very well thought out, and it just makes people glaze over, perhaps. Not that it should necessarily, but I guess that's just not what gets out. Not what gets clicks, interviews. The attention that a politician wants. One of the only ones that had a specific value on it was so this item I here is saying it's basically reducing or removing the $800 threshold that imports to the country are subject to. USTR talk about the World Trade Organization, and that's pretty much it. Now, there's a whole section with regards to China, actually, but it's even more vague. So this is arguably an even bigger issue than the Canada and Mexico tariffs that may be put in place. But he seems to have even kind of less thought out concepts of a plan for this one.
I was just going to say, I was looking at Section 3B. They're going to assess the May 14th, 2024 report titled 4-Year Review of Actions Taken in the Section 301 investigation. Is that public?
That's a good question, actually. I was not familiar.
Try to beat them to that.
Yeah, so maybe that's something that we could dive further into. And then he's got a couple at the end about additional security measures, but it's really along the same theme of just we're going to review this, we're going to revisit that, and we'll come back to this more or less at a different time. The only detail that we did get that evening, so as he was signing these things, so it's like, I guess whenever they do this, or the way that Trump does it, he sits in the Oval Office and they bring in all these reporters and they're taking pictures, and there's a live stream, and reporters are just like yelling questions at him in between the different signings, and one of which they did ask about timing.
It's bad precedent, obviously.
What are you thinking on tariffs on Mexico, given these actions you're signing on the border?
Well, we're thinking in terms of 25% on Mexico and Canada, because they're allowing vast numbers of people. Canada's a very bad abuser also. Vast numbers of people to come in, and fentanyl to come in.
When do you think you would enact those?
I think February 1st.
Are you planning on giving notice of that?
I think we'll do it February 1st.
25% on both, sir.
Sir, on each.
On each, yeah.
25%, February 1st. So that's really the only concrete detail that we really even got from him about this. And like, I thought it was kind of funny, like in that clip itself, it almost seems like he kind of just made up that date, like on the spot.
Maybe make some decisions. What do you want?
Yeah.
That's what you're doing all day. Sit there and make decisions. I'm certainly tuned in a little more than usual. I don't really follow politics, surprising. Maybe I have to follow it a bit more now because we're hosting this podcast. That's a good thing. That's one of the reasons why I wanted to start it, was to make sure that I'm plugged into stuff that's happening in the world.
With this president in particular, trade policies is just such a central theme so far. And not only that, or not only comments about trade and tariffs itself, like he can make a comment about anything and really start to move financial markets. So he can kind of just say anything and markets will move. For example, earlier today, even on Thursday, he was or he wasn't even there, but he kind of video called in to the WEF, the World Economic Forum. And he said a few different things. In like the core substance was he was calling for lower oil prices and kind of appealed to Saudi Arabia and wanted lower interest rates. The comment on oil itself, though, that had like it moved the price of oil that day. Like the global price of oil, everyone is impacted just because he said a sentence or two about it. And then on that note, the last thing I'll show is that with regards to trade and Canada specifically.
But one thing we're going to be demanding is we're going to be demanding respect from other nations. Canada, we have a tremendous deficit with Canada. We're not going to have that anymore. We can't do it. I don't know if it's good for them. As you probably know, I say you can always become a state. And if you're a state, we won't have a deficit. We won't have to tariff you, et cetera, et cetera. But Canada has been very tough to deal with.
So there it is. Canada, 51st state, wouldn't be complete without a reference there. So yeah, I mean,
yeah, that was, I don't know what to say. I'm wondering. I want to get kind of a shot of the audience members in Davos when he says that. I want to look at the faces. If they're anything like mine, I don't know. Sure.
Yeah, one of the things that he did get that kind of response from was during the Q&A session. He was speaking to the CEO of Bank of America, Brian Moynihan, and they were just kind of exchanging some pleasantries, and they're just, congratulations, Mr. President, blah blah blah. And then he was saying, "Oh, congratulations, you run such a great bank, blah blah blah." But then at the end, he said, "But what you do need to do is you need to stop not offering services to conservatives. What you're doing is wrong." He just said flat out, and then just kind of stopped from there. And then it panned back to the CEO, and it's just like total deer in the headlights moment. And he said something like, "Thanks for funding for this, I don't know, FIFA or some sporting event." And then it just panned away and then moved on. So that was like, in the audience, people were like pretty taken aback.
Going to work. He's never off of work,
Never.
Never. Fighting for his constituents, I guess.
That's it.
America first. It's the America first policy. Bank of America
policy, executive order. It's signed.
We're going to be tuned in a lot more this going forward.
Yeah. I'm sure there's going to be more to come. February 1st is only a short week away.
Yeah. You're really tuned into the trade. I think that's interesting. Is that like a personal interest of yours, or?
I think over time it's been developing. Just because, I mean, based on also some of the conversations that we've had personally, particularly about Peter Thiel's interpretation of these ongoing fiscal deficits. I'm not sure if Trump kind of uses the same thought process to get there, but he's clearly seems to be tuned in to that mindset. And it's not something that's really discussed that much. Even today, everything's dominated by, the mainstream. It's like mainstream values continuity because it's the mainstream. They want to keep going what they have going, whether that's in terms of, the media covering what it typically wants to cover, or trade policy doing things the way that they always have been done. But he's clearly out here and, demonstrating that he doesn't much care for that. Sometimes things need to change, and for better or for worse, he's getting out there and he's doing his best to make a change. Something will be imposed. There will be some reaction, maybe from that country, maybe from the U.S. in response to that country. Who knows? So this is a very dynamic situation.
Sweet. Well, you know where to get updated on this topic.
It's going to be here
on the Root of All Evil podcast. Thanks for clicking the link. We'll see you very shortly. I'm up next. Record something. All right.
See you soon.